we move from one extreme to the next. From the high speeds of the Autodromo de Monza to the tight streets of Long Beach. Welcome not only to 2025 Season 2 of iRacing, but welcome to the Platinum Pilot Series Season 2, Round 3. My name is Taylor Mills, and alongside me, Amity Pulsatrix, and we will be live from Lights to Flag here on ABN. The streets of the port of Long Beach host our 35 car field tonight, and it will be a battle between those tight, immovable walls. Car placement is key, as time is made by brushing those barriers and cutting those curbs. 11 turns, 6 to the right and 5 to the left, including the gorgeous fountain turn down at 3 and that infamous final hairpin. Sprinkle in updated LMP2 tyres, notoriously tricky braking zones, and a little bit of multi-class, and you've got a recipe for dramatic racing action. Our drivers will have to stay on their toes if they want to seek any success out there on track tonight. To help bring you the racing action is a bird very familiar with the streets of Long Beach, drifter Amity Pulsatrix. Amity, it is a far cry from the last race with a lot to be careful of. So what stands out to you as the key to victory tonight? Track position, of course, important to any sort of race, but none more so than Long Beach. We already have the first lap times coming in. The current head of the field is that number 812 car with Labrada on board, but we still have the tyres being brought very slowly up to temperature. Of course, that is one of the biggest difference that we're going to see between this week and last time out on Monza, is the fact that the LMP2s had another tyre update. It comes side by side with an update to the GTP tyres that mean they have less lateral grip in the high speed and take a lot longer to warm up. And with our qualifying format, 4 laps, 10 minutes, it's going to give our drivers plenty of time to get those Solara P217s Michelin tyres way up to temperature and start setting those blistering lap times that we've become used to all too well so far this season. We are on board with one of the drivers of the race winning team from last time out. It was a 1-2 finish for XBD, and they're looking to follow it up with a relatively strong result, but they currently have your winner from round 1 of Paquette up there with a 1 minute 14.6, already 2 seconds faster, by the way, than the first laps they set in this qualifying session. So that gives you a really good idea as to just how much the condition of the tyre does improve, as Labrada very close to the wall on the exit of turn 1. Another spot we've seen so many cars in, not only in sim racing, but in real life. Think back to the IMSA race here back in 2023 when one of those Acuras ended up very nose deep in the wall on the way to one of Porsche's first victories in GTP. But I think the biggest thing to focus on again is just how close those cars are getting to the barriers. I've just seen I think Alex Miller going for a spin through turn 8. Long Beach proving really tricky to tame. But Amity, you're used to a very different style of driving around this circuit, aren't you? And that's a final lap time in for Pedro Paquette as well. It wasn't enough to retake that pole position from Sundstrom. Here's Miguel Almeida looking to set a decent time, currently in second place, which is, I'd say, a little bit unusual for the driver of the number 98 Sonic Racing team car. It does look like an NGC by Rubis gas livery, doesn't it? Well, we saw him make the switch to NGC by Rubis Gas in the Platinum Endurance Championship, and it looked like it had been stuck on Sonic Racing Team for a few weeks. Perhaps an update needs to come in for our files on that one, but he is only down in P2 at the moment, not quite good enough to take pole position on his final lap. Rubens Lorente, who won last time out in GT3, currently on that provisional pole position. He is done for the afternoon, as far as I can tell. That may not quite be the case, but we are currently on board with Afonso Suto as he makes his way down into turn 8, a spot that will be a bit of a pinch point out here on track tonight, especially with how those LMP2s can get out the corner and go for a big dive into turn 8. It's one of the few overtaking points on the track, down in turn 1, of course, being one of them. A little bit of traffic management to do between turns 3 and 4 if you can actually get there. Actually, it might be a little bit more difficult considering how little power the LMP2s actually have. Now, Almeida comes across the line to finish his final lap of the session. It is not good enough to snatch that pole position. Afonso Suto abandons his lap, pulls into pit lane, currently in 3rd place. And for Balca Jr., Max Cuthbert on his way through that section of turns 3 and 4 that I was just mentioning, and all over the curb at turn 4. Not particularly a spot we see much curb hopping, as he chooses to completely avoid the curb at turn 5. That Porsche hard on the brakes into turn 6. So hard, in fact, that he comes to a complete stop on the exit of the corner. Matthew Luke for Fury Sim Sport almost touching the barrier on the inside of 6. And maybe carrying a 0x or a little bit of damage. Look at the side of that car. It looks absolutely pristine as he continues to thread his way between the barriers at Long Beach. Remember, any sort of incident point is going to invalidate your laps, even if it is a 0x, as we enter the final 20 seconds of the session. Matthew Luke looks like he should be up on his time, but did he invalidate that lap a little bit wide, maybe through the hairpin when they wanted to be closer to that wall on the inside? Full throttle, all 500 horsepower in the back of that LMP2, propelling him down the straight. Cuts the start-finish line, and it is an invalid lap time. Probably that contact with the wall down at turn 6 that ruined that one for him there, Amity. Just to break for a second, are you broadcasting your microphone? I'm here and you're not.
Oh. I was here talking the whole time, and I did not unclick the mute button. I'm so smart. Thank you for noticing.
It was one of the organizers. Welcome to the broadcast, Amity Pulsatrix. So on pole position for our 90-minute sprint around the streets of Long Beach, you have Mikael Sundstrom for, I can't quite see behind that. Usually I can rely on being able to see the text, nearly on pace. Alongside him, your race winner from round 1, Pedro Paquette. Oliver Vigaju will start 3rd, and Alberto Garcia will start alongside in 4th place. Andre Rosa for NGC by Rubis Gas will line up on the 3rd row of the grid alongside Bram Lenton for Veraco Esports Team White. Kostek Solovej will be in 7th place for Fury Simsport Red, and Fran Labrada will round out that 4th row of the grid for XBD. P9 goes to Leandro Mendez, and they will line up alongside Miguel Alonso down in 10th place. Killian Clace will fill the 11th slot on the grid alongside Bart Mattia for Connection Lost Racing in 12th. Scarlett DeMarco will start in unlucky P13 alongside Carlos Pereira in 14th. Alex Miller will roll his car away from 15th place, and Cesar Cabral will start this race in 16th. Martin Greer and Dominic Isenberg will complete row 9 of the grid, as Alex Deiter and Mark Hageler will follow them very closely behind on row 10. Matthew J. Luke, after invalidating his final lap, will start only 21st, and Daniel Fascia in 22nd. Stefan Le Guin for Squadra Veloce by Eagle Speed will start 23rd, and rounding out what should be a healthy Formula 1 grid size will be Carlos Acosta.
And then for your GT3 grid, we have Miguel Almeida. Throughout this broadcast, he's going to be set as Sonic Racing Team Green, but we need to update our graphics later on. He is actually for Rubus Gas. So he is going to be starting on pole with Ruben Lorente Jr. Right next. Alfonso Sudo and Young Curbs going to be in row 2. Adrian Hanowitz and Pedro Vigario in row 3. Diogo Teodoro, Mikel Estevez, Justin DeLucia, and Artur Lorero are going to be setting out your top 10 spots, and then Aaron Broderick and Max Cuthbert going to be in 11th and 12th, respectively.
As the pace car pulls in, Mikael Sundstrom will lead the field to green. It will be a single file start as Sundstrom gets away very, very well, and it's already cleared Paquette by a good 2 or 3 car lengths. But it's going to be Paquette under all of the pressure down into turn 1 as all of the LMP2s file their way through on some very, very cold Michelin rubber. You can see them practically tiptoeing through the fountain, as it's a case of who can be bravest on those cold tires and who can make up the most time, as Amity, the GT3 field makes its way around the final corner to start their race.
GT3 is rounding about the final corner on your screen as they file on down. Still at pace laps while the still at pace speed while the LMP2s have already launched, and they're finally heading on to their first trek into the first corner. Lorente currently leading the class through to turn 1. Gonna try to keep it as clean as possible. Very tight through the hairpin, or through the left-hand corner, sorry. My directions are all messed up as they head through the fountain and now towards the backstretch.
So back at the front of the field, Mikael Sundstrom leads the first lap of the race. Everyone's still very, very single file and very well behaved in LMP2. There is a bit of a separation that has started between 12th and 13th place as they were scrapping for position a little bit further down the order. But Bart Matea and Killian Claes were side-by-side side-by-side even coming down into turn 1 as the 28 car pulls into pit lane, and it looks like that might be their day over.
Yeah, that's looking pretty rough. Scarlett DeMarco with heavy damage on the Twin Turn Sim Racing Aurora car. We'll have to take a look at what exactly happened here. I think that's a car already sideways there. Oh, yes, wow. It is. And he's already got damage. There was already an incident here, I think, with Mark Hagela that was heading into the wall. So we'll take a look at that shortly. But he's already got damage. I'm not sure what exactly happens here. Oh, it just slows up to be able to get into the pits. It's probably what might have gotten detected as damage. We'll take a look. Nope, the car still has damage as we take a look at what happened with Mark Hagela. Yeah, just get a little squirrely. Still has those cold tires, not able to really get the power down as much as you'd want. I'm not seeing any events like crashes or whatever describing what exactly happened with that twin turn car, why it lost its front nose cone.
Well, as the race continues, Mikael Sundstrom leads another lap of this race. Just to touch on what potential strategy should be out there today, it is a very, very, very slow pit lane here at Long Beach, so it's pretty much going to be worth staying out as long as you can and spending as little time on pit road as possible, especially with the off-throttle nature of this track. I don't expect a lot of cars to be absolutely pushing, as Bart Matia has actually got a little bit of a run on Miguel Alonso as they're almost side by side coming down into turn 6. Mattia applying a lot of pressure to the driver of that number 92 car in an attempt to make it up into the top 10. As it's a big slap into the barrier for Bart Mattia down in 11th place. I think that's going to be a bit of bent suspension, and he may have to come down pit lane. That number 5 car not looking too happy on that front end, but still at the front of the field. Pedro Paquette still trying to put the pressure on the driver of the 899, nearly on pace LMP2. But Sundstrom's got a brilliant exit from the hairpin and is going to leave himself very safe from attack into that first corner. But I think, as I say, both of these cars on that fuel save at the moment, because the LMP2 can do it, but very deep into one. The Paquette is going to lose 1, 2, 3 positions into the fountain, and he'll have to slot in behind his NGC by Rubis Gas teammates as he drops from P2 all the way down to P5.
Very rough situation to deal with. I could hear in my ears a little bit of wall scraping there every now and again, heading through there. I'll see if we could take a look at what exactly happened with Pedro Paquette that caused him to lose so many positions. It might have happened just off screen. So as we take a look here, heading into turn 1, I think it might have been just a little bit too late on the brakes, and yeah, a little too late on the brakes, and then having to move wide and moving down about 4 positions, or no, 3 positions, yeah.
As a reminder, we are only 24 hours or so removed from the most recent build-up of iRacing. These cars were changed again as the tires got an adjustment and they had a little bit of aero stripped off them. Our field really trying to get to grips with the new almost lack of grip, and Pedro Paquette being one of our first victims of the new way that these cars handle. The front of the field has started to make its way up to the back of the GT3s. Long Beach being a track notoriously difficult for any form of traffic management. Max Cuthbert already a little bit off the back of the majority of the GT3 field. And as Sundstrom comes out of turn 5 and looks down the straight into turn 6, he can see that last place GT3. It was a purple sector 2 from Paquette last lap. Purple sector 2 from Paquette as he went through it there. So he's not too afraid to start pushing yet, as he's got 2 cars going side by side in front of him. I think that's going to be Alberto Garcia Blasco and Andre Rosa scrapping for position there, as Paquette is going to have a look down the inside of turn 9. It will be side by side with Alberto Garcia Blasco into this very tricky tight section. She says as if the rest of the track also isn't. Can Paquette actually get it done down the inside of the hairpin? He's going to keep the car in position. Blasco is going to give him all of the space. And just like that, Pedro Paquette up into 4th with a brilliant move into the final corner of the track.
That was a beautiful pass made through the power alley of Long Beach. Absolutely no notes. That's exactly how you want to try and make those passes happen. You basically want to try and apply pressure and make people go wide so that you can open up a gap to be able to fit in. That hairpin is incredibly difficult to make those passes happen unless you force somebody to make an error, and that is exactly what happened here, as finally the LMP2s have now reached the GT3s as Mikael Sundstrom makes his first lapped car pass.
Yeah, I think important to note about that move as well is it very much requires both drivers to be compliant in letting that one work. So a little bit of credit to Alberto Garcia Blasco, who, despite the fact he did lose a position in all of that, made the sensible choice of not pushing the issue too hard and does live to fight another day. There's still an hour and 22 minutes left in this race. He has time to make those positions back up, but we are now slowly starting to make our way towards the thick of the traffic. Max Cuthbert quite a way off the pace as it stands, just proving a little bit of a roadblock for Vigasu just behind him, and it is going to separate your lead battle in LMP2. Don't think that fight is over yet, though. We still have 10 more GT3s to make our way through, even in this first run of traffic. So I fully expect the LMP2 field to pack itself way back up.
Yeah, this is going to be difficult to manage as we're going through the fountain section. This is about the tightest portion, aside from the hairpin on the circuit. So you're going to see a lot of bottlenecking in this section of the track in Sector 1 and Sector 3, as that is exactly what we're seeing. We're now seeing the battle tighten up between 3 GT3s here, being led by the number 43 of Pedro Paquette, with Alberto Garcia Blasco and Bram Lenton following very closely behind. It looked like in that particular scenario, I think Bram Lenton wanted to make the pass before the corner, but couldn't quite get his door alongside, so slipped back in and loses a bit of time as he goes wide there a little bit, and now gets attacked by Kostek Solovic.
Are they going to be able to keep it clean into the hairpin like we saw with Blasco and Paquette? Yes, they are. Lenton is going to have to slot in behind the driver of the Fury SimSport LMP2. He has got an exit from the hairpin as they're going to go side by side through the kink on the run down to turn 1. Who's going to be latest on the brakes? Don't forget, there is a massive tyre barrier on the exit of 1. Plenty of space to go side by side, though. Solovic versus Lenton into 1. Both cars just about make it work as Solovic just slots in front of Lenton. A great bit of battling so far from these two, and as it does look set to continue, Lenton all over the rear of Solovic right now as they set up for the exit of turn 5. They've got a bit of a run down towards the 6th corner of the circuit. Lenton looks like he might want to set up the move. There is definitely enough overspeed as he peeks to the inside, has a little bit of overlap. I think maybe slapping the barrier on the inside will keep this battle going side by side, door banging all the way up to turn 8. As Solovic puts the squeeze on Lenton on the exit of 8, as these two do actually survive that. But here comes Fran Labrada in the background, unimpeded in the final 2 sectors, has managed to close right the way back up to Lenton. But Lenton is not giving up yet. He is still following Solovic just about as closely as he can. We saw how good he can get out of the hairpin on the last lap. Can he make the same thing happen again? I don't think he can, because Solovic's car was just a touch in the way. Labrada in the background, though, looking like the car with the run into 1.
Man, beautiful driving for the LMP2s. We saw a side-by-side battle for 2 corners. Definitely very scary to watch, but able to keep things clean as they're now once again going side-by-side through turn 1 this time. Bram Lenton attacking Kostek Solovic, and it looks like it's going to take over. Wow, what a muscly move from Kostek to get ahead. Or Fran Labrada, my apologies.
I was going to say that was Fran Labrada making a brilliant move into turn 3. Not a spot we often see much overtaking. Bram Lenton really struggling in that first sector to try and maintain positions, as 2 cars have passed them in the last 2 laps, as Labrada looks set to run away off into the distance a little bit and set off after Solovic, who is really starting to get onto the back of that LMP2 field right now. But it's Sundstrom who is really facing the brunt of it, as he is on the back of, I think that's the 87 of Miguel Estevez, as they're going to start threading their way through the hairpin and really start to close the P2 field back up. Lenton looking to the outside of the hairpin, looking for some sort of move, and there's big contact between Lenton and I think that was Mendez in the background there. Both cars just not quite prepared for what the other was going to do, as Lenton still tried to turn into the corner and ended up just turning himself on the nose of the car behind.
Ooh, that is really unfortunate. That's one of those scenarios you really don't want to see, because if you get caught up in traffic behind you, you get spun around, you gotta wait for everybody to pass you, and it takes ages. You are watching people go through that hairpin and you're just wanting them to go faster. As we take a look at what exactly happened here, what exactly transpired, we did see it a little bit on screen, but this will give us a better look.
Yeah, Lenton looking to the outside of the hairpin to try and make some sort of move work there, but I think the 14 just behind not quite prepared for the line that the 4 was going to take. It gets Alonso caught up in that one as well, who pulled immediately into pit lane, as the Dutchman had to wait before getting rolling again. Still continued out there on track, maybe with a little bit of bent steering as far as I can tell, but yeah, the front end of that Dallara not looking very happy at all.
Not ideal to be carrying damage around here. You really want a consistent car that feels the same in every corner, and as soon as you accumulate damage and potentially get suspension damage, it's going to affect your ability to figure out where to turn in, how to turn in, what the balance of the car is going to be like as you're using your trail braking to try and make that car turn as fast as possible. So it'll be interesting to see how Bram adjusts, but so far so good, at least for him, adjusting to the new handling of the LMP2 he just got himself, while LMP2s continue to navigate lapped traffic in the form of GT3 class cars. We are currently seeing Andre Rosa, who is second place, navigating a Sonic Racing Team car, just behind the number 71, I believe.
Yes, indeed. That will be... I can't actually see him, you know, on the list. Only Sonic Racing Team will be Afonso Soto.
It might be 11. It might be 11, maybe.
You know what?
Diogo that's
Teodoro.
11. Yep, Diogo Teodoro.
The Mustang to that McLaren 720S GT3 Evo, that's the one. Mikael Sundström closing in on the back of a battle for P3, actually, towards the front of the field. You've got Afonso Soto, who I was just talking about, trying to fend off that Audi R8 V10 of Jan Kurbs, who has actually maintained position off the start. Almost depressingly, I think the top 8 in GT3 haven't moved a muscle from their starting position. Overtaking proving very difficult at Long Beach, but it very much is a story of survival. Force the drivers in front of you into a mistake, fill their mirrors full of your own car, make them think about it. You get them mirror driving. As long as they're not looking at the track, they're not going fast. Afonso Soto does have a little bit of separation from Kurbs back there in P4 as your overall race leader threads his way through the top end of the GT3 field. You can see how delayed the LMP2s are now in terms of getting up to the back of the GT3s. It's something we're going to see quite a lot in at PEC when we return to Le Mans next time out. That closing speed between the two classes is going to drop significantly as those cars have lost over 10 seconds a lap in race trim at Le Mans. But with the way that the LMP2s have also been adjusted, it means they have to wait so much longer before they get up to the back of GT3s because they've got just that little bit less downforce to carry the cornering speed and just that little bit less grip in the tires to actually get the power down into the tarmac and start accelerating out of these corners. Look how long Sundström has had to wait to get out of the slipstream of Miguel Almeida there, and he's only just going to be clear by the time they get on the brakes for turn 1.
It is incredibly difficult to make these passes work at Long Beach in a safe capacity. You want to make sure that you're alongside in the braking zone so you can properly signal to the GT3 drivers, hey, I'm trying to get past you. But on the same breath, GT3s are trying to run their own race as well. There's 2 races happening on the same track at the same time. We all know how this works. So, you know, to a certain extent, the GT3s can't really get out of your way. They have to be running their own race. They have to stay on their own racing line. They have to stay predictable. So if you're not able to get alongside in that braking zone, you're just causing more potential for a wreck. So it's better to just be safe and lose a few seconds or even half a minute behind these GT3 cars as opposed to pulling out, making a really dangerous pass, and then ruining your whole race, especially when it's an hour and 30 minutes long.
Well, speaking of issues, I've just spotted one that happened to Vigaju on the last lap coming out of turn 8, trying to go side by side with one of the, I think it's the Voracious McLaren GT3, just got checked up on corner exit, which Alberto Garcia Blasco didn't quite expect, and Blasco ended up in the back of the nearly on pace car. We should see a replay of it here. You'll see the 81 trying to sneak around the outside of turn 8, carrying a little bit of damage on both corners of the car. Pulls over to the right as Blasco pulls over to the right as well. And at that point, there's absolutely nothing he can do as he collects. I think that was another one of the XPD cars. And Vigaju just has to try and get that thing turned around without getting in the way of any other cars. You see the Eagle Speed car pulling way to the right-hand side of the circuit as Vigaju has already been down pit lane for over a minute and a half, taking on some significant repairs, but is out of the session now, so that's race over for the number 81 car. A driver that was in a really strong spot in Monza, in a position to pull off a decent result for nearly on pace, but just not quite able to make it happen again here at Long Beach.
Yeah, really unfortunate situation to be in, but car behind when Alan P2 trying to make a pass, didn't quite time pulling out from the slipstream well enough, and unfortunately clipping the back end of that LMP2, and you saw just how violently that thing spun. It was like being spun like a top, or like a Beyblade even, and you just, you know, I can't remember what the slogan is, like let it rip or something like that.
It is.
Hey, I know things. I'm hip with the kids, right? Are Beyblades still...
Old. No, we're old. They're still a thing.
No, Beyblades are still popular, though. That's what I'm saying, right? The kids still play with them?
I don't know because I'm not 12, Amity.
What? What are you talking about? Beyblades are sick. You get to, like, you put pieces on them and then they're customized? Never mind. Honestly, the kids don't know what they want these days. They don't know what's good for them.
No, never mind. This is an important topic of conversation.
No, because here's the thing.
Awesome.
They were awesome. They continue to be awesome. But kids these days, I don't know if they play with them. I don't think they do. They're moved on to other things. I don't know. But
they play on their iTablets and games watches, you know?
I'm just realizing how much of a boomer I sound. Maybe I should keep myself quiet.
No, because Beyblade is cool, though. You get little plastic little tubs that you take the thing and you spin the thing and then it stops and then they come flying off and spinning at God knows what speed.
Yeah, it was especially fun.
Into each other's.
Yeah, it was.
Go on.
It was especially fun when, like, a plastic piece chipped off of your Beyblade and got lodged in your eye socket. That was awesome.
Do you know what it is?
What?
It is. It's conkers for people born after 1977.
Oh, no.
It's just more expensive conkers. I remember being a kid and my parents talking to me about playing conkers when they were at school and talking about how conkers got banned. I was never growing up at the age where conkers was still cool.
What is that? I'm Canadian. I don't know what that is.
What, you don't actually know? Okay.
We didn't have conkers.
This is such a non sequitur. I apologize. We are still following the battles out there on track between Martin Greer down in 15 as he goes very deep into turn 1. He's going to have to get that car spun around very quickly, and it's going to rejoin the race relatively safely. But right, as we just watch this unfold between Greer and one of the Fury Sims cars, there is contact between him and one of the GT3s down at the fountain as the McLaren couldn't get out of the way, didn't need to get out of the way, to be honest. The LMP2 really forcing the issue there as Max Cuthbert is going to make his way through on Artur Loureiro as that NGC by Rubis Gas McLaren gets shuffled down the field just a little bit, all triggered by Martin Greer's recovery from going very deep down at turn 1. Greer has rejoined the race, has minimal damage after that contact with the McLaren, but that certainly looks like an incident that will be looked at after the race. To finish I think I've got time to finish the point on what conkers is, because I've got to provide that little bit of education as Fran Labrada getting all sorts of bottled up behind the car in front. Chestnut tree with the thing, the green thing with the chestnut in the middle of it. In the UK, they used to drill holes through them, get a bit of string, tie it through it, and then how do you explain it? You'd hold the chestnut in one hand, put tension in the string, and then swing it at someone else's chestnut, and whoever's broke first lost.
That's actually kind of sick, actually. It sounds like a fun game, like just make it yourself type thing.
And it is. It's all fun and games until a bit of chestnut chips off and hits someone in the eye.
Incredible. I feel like we've had a few made-up games up here, but I'm not exactly sure what you didn't have, so I wouldn't know for sure. I wasn't really much of a game player when I was a kid. You know, I just kind of licked metal poles in the middle of winter and ripped taste buds off my tongue like a normal kid.
Tell me you're Canadian without telling me you're Canadian.
Right. As we take a look
through traffic then, Fran Labrada just about managing to hold on from Bart Mattia, who is being very, very patient to not send one up the inside of that XBD racing car. A great little battle that we're seeing so far on track, though, as these two are going to stay nose to tail. As you can see them both driving to the absolute limit of the circuit, getting those cars right up against the barrier on the exit of 4. Actually, I think rubbing some white paint off that wall as Labrada's going to be feeling the pressure from Mattia behind. Connection Loss Race doing everything they can to try and force an error out of the XPD Racing driver, but force an error out of themselves. A big slide on entry 2-8. Bart Mattia just about keeps it out of the wall, keeps the car going, but he's going to do all that work to get on the back of that car in front all over again.
Sheesh, that was straight up over the limit for Bart Mattia, being able to at least control the car to keep it pointed relatively straight, but that's really not the ideal line you want to be taking through the second sector of the course, going sideways through the entry and exit of some of these corners. But that is just how much Bart wants these positions, wants these points for the series, especially because you can see some damage on the left front of the car. He's trying to make up as much time as possible, but you really can't rush things. If you push over the limit, you're going to burn your tires up, and at a hot track like this, it's going to be a big issue later on in the race.
34 Celsius out there on the circuit as we tick towards 24 minutes gone in this race. The majority of the LMP2 field will be targeting after 45 minutes to get those cars down pit lane. Should be well doable, especially with the amount of traffic we've got out there on circuit and the opportunities to do that lift and case down into turn 1, down into turn 6, down into turn 9, and to really try and get those cars to the halfway mark.
Oh boy.
Some drivers out there are carrying a little bit of damage. You can see a touch of flaky paint on the front left corner of that number 41 car. In fact, no, not just the front left, but that has been a big hit in the wall for Taylor Mills Racing's Alexander Miller, as he is getting hunted down by Cesar Cabral in that Race 2 esports car. But you can see that's Brem Lenton to the outside of turn 9, actually. He's going to get the car there, and he's going to get it stopped and keep it side by side. They continue towards the hairpin, door to door, bumper to bumper through the hairpin, banging side by side, and they will continue as such down the straight on the run into turn 1. It's only the car on the outside of Lenton that's carrying any amounts of damage. Cabral has the preferred line on the inside of that King, but Lenton still maintains overlap on the brakes into 1. Lots of curbs used on the inside. It's a big squeeze from Cabral, who almost ends up in the barrier, but Lenton is going to stay there into 3, and Cabral decides to back out, thinking better of going for that move there, and lives to fight another day.
Man, what an incredible, let me try again. What an incredible battle from Bram Linton. There we go. Trying to recover from an incident earlier where he had to wait so long after getting spun by a car behind, or maybe even Bram cutting in. Remains to be seen who might be at fault for that particular excursion. But now Bram fighting for every position he can possibly have, trying to get more points for his team here. Vareco Esports Team White in that gorgeous orange and white number 4, trying to gather some points for the Dutch. And he's doing a really good job here, being as aggressive as he possibly can and taking battles where he possibly can find them. Although if you keep pushing your luck may run dry, so it's a bit of a risk-reward thing. And how desperate is Bram for those points remains to be seen.
Well, to the inside of one of the racer engineering McLarens, he goes into turn 1, and he's actually doing a great job of closing the gap up on Alexander Miller, who is going to have absolutely nowhere to go through the fountain as he finds a Jan Curbs, again, another racer engineering car, right in his way. Miller will have to sit there and wait to clear that Audi, as Lenton is going to almost set up a good exit through 5, but can't quite get on the power as early as he wanted. Those bumps on the inside of that corner proving very difficult to deal with. It's a big send to the inside of 6. Jan Curbs used to being on the giving end of that and not quite the receiving, but saw it coming well off and stays well wide, as it's Lenton now putting all the pressure on Alexander Miller on that run down into turn 9. Will Miller choose to defend? We know Lenton can get around cars in front of him in any way he pleases. Is that a pattern that is going to be set to continue? Miller using all of the racetrack to try and filter through with as much speed as possible as he comes up on your top 3 in GT3. Big focus on the exit of the hairpin as they continue that run down the straight that we've already seen 20 times this race so far. It's Lenton behind that bright blue TMR car of Alex Miller in that slipstream, just carrying a little bit less damage than the 41, but Miller is going to get checked up behind even more traffic in sector 1. Lenton just wants to back off a little bit, set up maybe for the exit and look for a way through at turn 5, maybe turn 6. He's got a lot of time to make this happen. Miller is, well, he's not looking too good. That left-hand side of the car still looking rather collapsed, Amity.
Alex Miller trying to hold on to this position with everything he possibly can, holding on to 10th as best as possible and doing a pretty darn good job of it, honestly. And just as I say that, Lenton going for a dive onto the inside and is going to get that position pretty handily unless Alex Miller has something to say about it. And it looks like that car might be clear, so he slots right back in, but Alex Miller trying to look for the outside, trying to make a pass work on the outside, but it's not going to happen. Lenton uses the GT3 as a pick and now separates himself from the car behind, as now the number 70 is going to start attacking Alex Miller in the 41.
We've seen how once that momentum gets snatched away, you can lose so many positions. Pedro Paquette being on the receiving end of that one at the start of this race, but so many others have fallen foul of just getting slotted down the order. Miller with a big defense to the right-hand side of the circuit. Cabral isn't going to have any sort of run into turn 1 as the 41 car finally gets a clean run through the first sector and can really start to think about running away. Big brush on the barrier for that P217 as the Pennsylvanian doing everything he can to try and hold on to 11th place and maybe close back in on Bram Lenton, but Lenton is looking on fire right now. Here's an onboard view from Race 2 Esports Cesar Cabral as he is trying to hunt back down the number 41. It's a good clear track in front of him, not too much traffic to deal with until they get to that final sector. Cabral just a touch wide of the exit on the inside of the corner, but still in the slipstream of the TMR car in front as they thread their way into the final sector yet again.
You can see just how much Cabral is struggling for grip, and that is one of the improvements that iRacing has mentioned about their new tire model and how it works on these prototypes. The GTPs received most of the fanfare for this update, but the LMP2s also received it. If you are too aggressive on your tires in the initial portion of your stint, the tires are ruined for the rest of the stint. You just did not heat them correctly, so you're going to get marbling on the tires. You're going to get some weird scalding on the tires. It's a very common trope in Formula One where you overheat those tires and then they just start melting where they are and then recongealing later on. And this is exactly what's happening to these tires here. So I think Cesar Cabral might have been pushing it a little bit too hard. You can see in the steering inputs and in the throttle, listening to the car's behavior, just how much of a struggle it is to manage these tires when you screw it up even just the slightest bit.
Oh, door banging on the run down to 8 between one of the GT3s and Alex Miller, who almost tried to make a move work around the outside. It's your reigning champion, Miguel Almeida, on board that McLaren GT3, as Cabral may finally have that run he's been looking for down into turn 9, peeks to the inside, stands on that brake pedal to draw level with the 41 car. Miller forced to the outside of 9, to the inside of 10, and it's just the hairpin as he slots back in front that he needs to use to try and stay in front. The 70 almost in his diffuser and the hairpin, but Cabral gets all sorts of checked up on the exit, avoiding a collision with the back end of Miller, and does not get the run out of the corner that he wants, as Miller is going to hang on for one more lap. The driver of the 41 doing a great job of holding the 70 behind, no bias.
That was so sketchy watching that. I was almost certain we were going to see a problem here, as I'm taking a look through our event viewer and we might have a bit of an issue, might have had a collision here. Pedro Vigario jumping to pits, as well as Matthew Luke. This might be a pretty significant issue here, so we'll take a look at what exactly happened. So this is Vigario, I believe, on all alone here through the last corner. Gets a little bit sideways and can't quite recover. Oh, no.
No.
Why would you do this? That is going to get a stern talking to from the stewards. This is why we have our relative black box open when we're GT3 drivers. That is so unfortunate.
Yes. Well, you have your relative open no matter what car you're driving, but a very not smart decision from Vigario there as he just reverses his stopped car onto the racing line and commits the absolute cardinal sin of rejoining the race. 30 minutes gone in this event. It is Sundstrom from Rosa, from Paquette, from Solovej, from Matea in the top 5 of LMP2, and Lorente from Almeida, from Suto, from Curbs, from Hanovics in GT3, as they all continue to actually survive Long Beach relatively well for the most part. There is a pattern between the top 5 in each class, and it's that they are carrying very, very little damage. Pit stops about 12 minutes away for the LMP2s, and it's going to be an interesting question, Amity, as to whether or not the P2 drivers decide to change tires or not. We do see a slightly higher tire wear than last season now with the new update, but with 35 Celsius on track, the question becomes, is it worth taking a fresh set and having to go through that 3, 4, 5 lap tire warm-up once again?
That is a really good point. I hadn't thought of it like that, because you are going to have to drive it so much slower compared to how you would have been driving with warm tires. But at a certain point, you do need to take tires, because like as the tires get worse and worse throughout the stint, at the back half of that, it's going to get pretty bad. Like, you're going to be dealing with a massive amount of traction loss towards the end of the race. I would assume, just to be on the safe side, just take the tires anyways, deal with the cold tires and try to warm them up properly and get going again. I don't know if we're going to see anybody take that risk and choose not to take tires, just because it is so fresh off of the new season, the new updates and whatnot. I don't know if anyone's going to take that risk, but if they do, it'll be interesting to see if it pans out that way. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
Well, I'll give you a little bit of information that might sway your idea one way or the other. I was doing a little bit of testing in the GTPs at Suzuka earlier tonight, and the pace difference between cold tires and warm tires was a 1 minute 52 down to a 1 minute 48. Wow. So that should give you some sort of scale as to what we're dealing with here in terms of how long it does take to get those tires up to temperature and how cold those cold tires actually are. I must have spun about 4 or 5 times and had to reset to pit lane to try and go again. But every single time I spun, I had to sit there. And as someone who was part of that original thread complaining about the tires, I had to remind myself, you asked for this, you asked for this, you asked for this, Taylor. Taylor, you asked for this. Anyway, here is Max Cuthbert up in 9th place, coming under pressure just pressures himself into a mistake down at the hairpin. And yeah, does drop down into 9th. I think that might have been Artolorero who went through. I can't quite tell. As we have Carlos
Hernandez.
Actually. Oh, it is Hernandez. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Locks it up on the brakes into turn 8 and just taps that barrier on the outside of the corner. It's the one that's meant to save you from hitting the concrete wall on the outside, but it still does a similar amount of damage, as I think that car came down pit lane just last lap, as it is politely, that car is very bent.
Yeah, the steering linkage is practically not even connected to the car anymore. That is an aggressive tow out and tow in from 2 sides of the car you don't want to see. And Max Cuthbert later on having another issue. These issues happening very close in proximity to each other. Oh no, and gets shunted from behind by the LMP2 car. And once again finds himself in trouble.
Yeah, just Cuthbert getting all sorts of out of shape between turns 4 and 5, just touching that barrier on the outside of the circuit, not able to set himself up for 5 as good as he wanted to. Gets checked up mid-corner a little bit, and the LMP2 behind just not prepared for that one. It's nose to rear contact, and there's nothing that Porsche could do but get fed into the tyre barrier on the outside of the circuit. He did recover quite well though, credit where it's due, and does get to continue. But he is lamenting at the back of the field a little bit right now.
Meanwhile, we're taking a look at the battle for 8th position. Killian Claes participated in... that is a big incident behind. Bram Lenton once again getting in trouble, hitting the tire barriers with the rear end of the car, slamming the front end into the wall. That might be a bit of a suspension issue. depending on how he slammed that wall, it looked pretty heavy contact, at least for that kind of corner speed. So we'll have to see how that affects Bram going forward. But he already has damage from previous incidents, so he's been managing well and battling hard in spite of that. So we'll have to see if there is further damage to the suspension of the car as he tries to surge forward past Carlos Pereira in the Sempre Nameca number 10, just ahead. I believe a S&M car was one of the cars we saw in the previous incident with Max Cuthbert. Might have been Daniel Feisch as well, as actually Daniel is now in the pits.
Yeah, up on the jacks then goes the S&M car of Feisch. He will be taking fresh tyres into the second stint. It's a bit early to make that one stop work for the 47 as your race leader Mikael Sundström continues for at least one more lap. I'd be expecting all of these guys to go 3, 4, 5 laps longer, but Amity in this fight for P9 in LMP2, we have got Bram Lenton going for a move down the inside of turn 9. Pereira backs out of it and lets him have it, as there is some GT3 traffic they're coming up to, and it looks like Pereira doesn't want to be the first one to get there, as Lenton trying to find a way past Loureiro as they come out of the hairpin. And it's a run down the straight. Asita Cabral comes down pit lane again. We think a little bit early. The time loss at Long Beach is about a lap for a full service. And that is more than the time it takes, or the time it loses you to save fuel to go just 4 laps longer. That's all you need to push the window, just 4 laps.
Meanwhile, taking a look at some other LMP2 battles happening here. Once again, Carlos Pereira and Alexander Miller getting caught up behind some GT traffic. At the current moment, GT3s have been fairly stagnant, not a whole lot of battling. They've just been kind of staying where they are, keeping things clean. And unfortunately, it seems as though like last event, everybody's kind of settling into their positions. And especially at Long Beach, it seems the GT3s are also getting held up quite a lot by LMP2s, getting their battles cut up by the knife edge of a LMP2 body. And yeah, you can see that's the top 3 right there on your screen, on the same straightaway, but not close enough to benefit from each other's draft. So it's just waiting for a mistake at this point in GT3. Everybody's pretty well organized. Not a whole lot of people have really gained or lost positions, aside from maybe Arturo Loureiro gaining positions from GT3s, as I think there was an issue with Ferreira. See if I can find him.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to bring you a replay of exactly what happened to the number 10 car there. Just trying to follow it myself a little bit, and you know what? I think he just got completely run over by one of the GT3s into turn 1. I'm going to make the call that was Justin DeLuca there, the Canadian, getting well in the way, missing his braking point. Has to go somewhere, and it just so happens to be to the right-hand side of the driver of the 10. As the 143 doesn't quite manage to keep it out of the barrier. The S&M driver tried to leave space for him, and I think if that 911 GT3 hadn't bumped out of the barrier, there wouldn't have been contact between those two. But just a very unfortunate incident, as it was Alex Miller who managed to slot his way up into P10.
Yeah, that was a real sketchy incident. Quick thinking from the Porsche, but at a certain point, there's really nothing you can do. And the mistake having been made in the first place shouldn't have been happening. But still, very narrow gap to try and fit through. Tried his best to try and prevent a bigger incident than what could have possibly happened, but unfortunately, still managing to affect other people's races. Very unfortunate to see. It's always really frustrating to be the cause of those kinds of events. Like, I'm personally a big fan of tin top racers, you know, the GT3 cars and GTO, whatever it is, whatever era. I'm always really big fan of the sports car, like specifically the cars that you can buy on the dealership kind of thing. And when you're in that slower class car and you cause an incident like that, it is just, it feels terrible. It feels awful.
So pit cycle is well underway in LMP2 as you have one of the XPD racing cars and one of the NGC Rubis gas drivers down pit lane for the first time. It is Pedro Piquet and Fran Labrada that make their way onto that very, very slow pit lane. Both drivers opting to take a fresh set of Michelins into this next 50 or so minutes of the race. Neither of them making it to that magic 45-minute window to get to the end of this one on the one stop. But one driver who's looking very close to making it that deep into the race is Mikael Sundstrom. Will he prove me wrong almost straight away? No, he won't. And do you know what, Amy? With how long it takes to get down pit lane and get a pit service done, I think this is as far as Sundstrom needs to go. One more lap, and I'll call that in the window for a one-stop. What a great job from the Nearly On Pace team to get this car in this position.
Absolutely. Sundstrom is set up for success here. I'm not really the smartest when it comes to strategy, so I'm not really sure what the advantages of this call would be. Could you describe, like, what is Mikael Sundstrom really doing with this vehicle that makes you predict he's going to be pitting next lap?
So it's all about stint time at the end of the day compared to how much time you lose on pit lane with a 60-kilometer-an-hour pit lane here at Long Beach that pretty much runs from the hairpin all the way down into turn one. The time loss here is absolutely immense. When we came here last season in the IMSA Endurance Series, it ended up being a lap. Do you know how I know it ended up being a lap? Because I came out behind the exact GTP that I was pitting to avoid being behind. So that's a good chunk of time. That's a minute and 40 seconds. A minute and 15 seconds in these cars, which is way, way, way less than the time you're going to lose, even if it's, goodness, almost a second a lap over the course of a stint. That's only going to be 35 seconds or so. It's well worth not losing that extra 50 seconds in that second stop and just staying out on track and plugging away. Sundstrom will stay out another lap because that offset between time loss from fuel saving and time loss from coming down pit lane is well in his favor. So all these cars that are still out there on track on those 35, 34 lap stints right now, you're looking at Sundstrom, Rosa, Solovej, Matea, Blasco, I think, is staying out as well. Killian Claes, Alexander Miller, Alex Deiter, all haven't come down pit lane yet and will be on that, I think, optimal one-stop strategy. There you go. There's your pit strategy guide, and everyone in the top 10 hasn't come down pit lane yet. And those guys are the ones in the absolute best spot to finish in the absolute best positions today.
Sure seems to be the case. Sundstrom handling the tire wear very well. Seems to be a very well-balanced car. We saw him get sideways through, I believe, about turn 4 or 5, somewhere around there in the first sector, the end of the first sector. But handling it very nicely. Once again, going around the track, no pit stop. We have not had a blinker yet. I think Paquette behind and Killian Claes taking a pit stop now. But Sundstrom and the top 9, or top 8 rather, yet to blink for a pit stop. And as I say that, Solovej actually coming into the pits for service. The Fury Sim Sport red car, number 222. A long trip to the pit box. Gonna get in that pit box very nicely, and once again on the jacks for new tires.
But look at the time loss here. You can see the cars that are staying out on the outside of the circuit, and look at the amount of speed even the GT3s are carrying past the Fury Sim Sport car as it is sat stationary, getting that tire change done, getting that fuel tank topped off, and even look as it begins to roll down pit lane in a few seconds or so. It is only going to be at 60 kilometers an hour, and you can see the pit lane exit is way past the pace car. It's going to be a full tank for Solovej. I don't doubt that, because he still needs to go to the end of this race as the Dallara P217 gets rolling and is waiting to take that pit lane speed limiter off as he continues to wait and continues to wait and continues to wait. And finally he can release the car back out onto the circuit. Don't cross that red line or blue line even on the left-hand side of your car, because that's going to induce a penalty. But you can see how long the pit lane time loss is. Looking at some of the timers that I've got so far, it's 1 minute and 9, 1 minute and 10, 1 minute and 10, 1 minute and 7, 1 minute and 10, 1 minute and 9, 1 minute and 8. And you're practically stationary for most of that time. Alberto Garcia Blasco pits from P4 as your race leader, Mikael Sundstrom, does stay out another lap. He is absolutely pushing how far this car can go. A couple of different strategies definitely on the table today, Amity, as I think we've got some cars splitting this race into thirds. And a lot of this LMP2 field are sticking to that one-stop strategy.
Yeah, it does seem like it, and you know, I'm not really sure which is going to be the best. Like I said, I'm not really the best at pit strategy or figuring any of that out. But finally, Mikael Sundstrom going to take the pit stop. Finally, you saw a car get squirrely behind. I believe that was Andre Rosa in the NGC by Rivas Gas car, and getting squirrely, trying to slow the car down for pit speed. And finally going to get a brand new set of tires onto the car, along with Alex Steiner and Alberto Garcia Blasco, who are also in pit lane trying to get some service. And Bart Mattia, now inheriting the lead of the race, has yet to pit.
But he is getting absolutely hounded by everyone else who has pitted.
No.
This will be a huge time loss in terms of his race strategy, as Fran Labrada in front gets checked up behind Diogo Teodoro, who has just come off pit lane. So the pit window is open for the GT3s as well, as they begin to filter their way down pit lane. Big door bang between Mattia and Labrada. Labrada getting punted out wide on the exit of 5, and Bart Mattia taking absolutely no prisoners out there on track as he makes this very, very long, almost 40 lap stint work, looking to the outside of Teodoro to get clear of that GT3 on the run down to turn 9. But Labrada behind is a lap down, but is looking to get back on that lead lap and make his time loss in this race as little as possible. I think it's going to be very difficult for these XPD racing guys to recover the position that they put themselves in. But goodness gracious me, Bart Mattia is on this track and he is making it his own.
Still no pit stop from the Connection Lost Racing team, and the number 5 still going on those old tires. We might just see one of these drivers pull out some incredible feats on these old tires here, as you saw him get a little bit loose on initial turn in, but able to keep the car under control. Going through the fountain section, still looks about as fast as it's always been, but this has definitely got to be at least a little bit slower than ideal. You can see some of the times checking over on some of the cars that are on fresh tires. 1:16.6 from Lenton, a 1:17.4 from Killian Clace. Meanwhile, Media's last lap, I believe, was a 1:19. That is a 5 to 6 second difference. Sundstrom a 2:15.7, and he is currently in Delta first place, at least according to the pit strategies.
So here we are then, Bart Mattia coming round turn 10 and into the hairpin at 11. Is this going to be the point where he decides to pit after a mega 51-minute stint? Makes that hard right turn into pit lane, onto the limiter, and now it's a question of where does he come out. Here's Mikael Sundstrom just coming out of turn 6, and I think making contact with one of the Slippers Racing Team cars as they go for a big spin out of 6, have to recover. Hopefully no damage on the front of Sundstrom's car there, but not quite sure how that all came together with Alex Dieter there. Maybe a mistake mid-corner to get the Slippers car checked up on the exit and then causing the contact between the two. I don't know what you saw there, Ami.
I'm not sure that there was any contact. I think it was just Alex Steiner getting loose on exit. As we take a look through here, we're seeing Alex Steiner in the Slippers Racing Team car. Yeah, just getting a little bit wide, and Sundstrom very lucky to be able to avoid that particular incident. Quick thinking on the heels of an incident that could have completely destroyed the fantastic race that Mikael Sundstrom has been putting on. But able to avoid very cleanly as he is now being chased by Andre Rosa in the NGC by Rubus Gas car, just behind the number 899 going up against the number 42 in LMP2.
This is the lead fight that we've had absolutely all race long, often separated by a few seconds, often separated by a couple of cars, but through the pit stop cycle, the 42 and the 899 have closed right the way up. It is nearly on pace racing, setting the pace here at Long Beach today at the front of the field. But Andre Rosa for NGC by Rubus Gas is doing everything he can to try and take that top spot off Mikael Sundstrom as we tick towards 35 minutes to go. Into the hairpin they both come. A slightly wide entry for Rosa, looking to try and set up some sort of run into the first corner with these gorgeous static counters. You can hear the V8, the Gibson V8 engines in the back of those cars roar as they get propelled down the longest flat out section on the circuit. Rosa just peeks out a little bit, lets Sundstrom know that he's there, tucks back in for a good run through the corner, but is having to eat all of that dirty air. Sundstrom has to check up on corner exit to avoid the wall as Rosa is right in his diffuser. He can smell the exhaust gases coming off the back of your race leader as Sundstrom under all sorts of pressure through 5, a great line through 5 for Andrea Rosa, which has put him in a great position coming into this final sector. He's looking towards turn 8 now. Can he set up for a run into 9? We've seen so many moves made down there today. Is the NGC by Rubus Gas driver going to be able to make another one of it? I don't think so. That was a really good exit from Mikael Sundstrom there.
I cannot believe how close these drivers are getting to the wall. Like, the static cams really show just how much they are playing with danger. We saw multiple situations with both Sundstrom and Rosa getting incredibly close to the wall, within an inch or less, and nothing significant happening. I could not ever in my life imagine wanting to play with the wall like that. That is incredible. Like, not just like confidence, but also like, just for lack of a better terminology, just cojones, just the massive gall to be like, I see that's a hard object, I'm not going to touch it, it'll be fine, I'll get close to it, whatever. I can't imagine that, as now the top 2 cars are battling with lapped LMP2 traffic.
Not a fan of street circuits, Emmy.
No? Not a big fan?
He's scared of them.
What?
He's scared of
oh, you're talking to me? Like, am I scared?
Yeah.
No, I just don't like walls. I don't like damage on my car. So I love street circuits. Don't get me wrong. I love the technicality of it. Oh, huge impact from Rosa.
Yeah, speaking of not liking damage, Andre Rosa is going to have picked up a little bit there on the exit of turn 8. Just look at that rear left corner. You can see that scuffed paint on the mud flap, the brake light holder of that LMP2. He is going to be carrying a little bit of left-hand side damage now. We'll see if it holds him up in this fight between him and Mikael Sundstrom. But right now, Sundstrom is doing a great job of fending off the NGC by Rubus Gas car, as he just doesn't seem to be able to make a move work. He's already dropped back 8/10 on the straight. So I'm going to make a bold prediction and say that damage might be affecting Rosa here.
Oh, absolutely. You can see just how much time has been lost between Rosa and Sundstrom. It's hard to say there's any reason he wouldn't be that much slower all of a sudden. And you know, to finish my statement though, like, I love street races. I love these courses because of their technicality, because they're scary to drive. It's just the way that these drivers, these LMP2 drivers, are getting so close to the wall and just playing with death, as we saw Rosa once again make contact with the wall there, although much more glancing blow type deal. That's the kind of thing I'd be scared of, is just being an inch off of my turn-in, an inch off of my braking point, and causing damage to the car, having to deal with that damage of the car for the rest of the stint, for the rest of the race. That is nerves beyond any recognition I could possibly have, beyond human comprehension, at least to me. So, like, I love street circuits. They're scary. I love them. they just do not like me. Then they make it known.
I'll tell you what, when we did the 2 hours, 40 minutes, when we won the 2 hours and 40 minutes in Long Beach, I'm not going to be coy, we won that race. The amount of times I had to press the damage report button because I heard a little scrape on the barrier and I was like, oh, did I actually pick anything up off that? Just to double, triple check I hadn't picked up any extra damage. Yeah, that top right panel on my wheel got an absolute workout. We were talking though about how that damage may have been affecting Andre Rosa. He seems to have calibrated himself to it now, as he's already caught right up to the back of Mikhail Sundstrom. Yet again, that gap only 0.4 of a second. There's that lapsed car that they cleared about a lap or so ago, already a good few seconds behind, as this battle is literally just between these two at the front of the field. Both of them on that longer stop strategy. They both stopped really, really late. I think it was a 38 lap stint for both of these cars. Obviously one car went longer, I think it was Mateo down in P4.
They both pit lap 38.
Yeah, there you go. Then Mateo's going to be able to push a lot harder in this second stint, or took on less fuel at the stop. It is one in the same. But Rosa just has to, as I say, like he has done for the most part, get reset and really focus up and stay under that rear wing of Sundstrom, because it's that pressure that really starts to mount. A mutual friend of ours will always talk about the patience meter of a car behind you that starts to build and build and build as they don't get a move done. It's the same thing in the exact opposite direction that Mikhail Sundstrom's going to be feeling right now, as the pressure builds and builds and builds, as he can't shake Andre Rosa. As the gap increases between them, that pressure will relax a little bit, but as he starts to close back up and then doesn't disappear again, it's when that pressure is going to start to mount and mount again. It's why a lot of these LMP2 and prototype drivers are quite grateful when it comes to having the GT3 traffic, because getting a car between you and the driver that you're fighting on track just gives you that extra little moment to breathe and reset and think about what you're doing and get back in a rhythm without having to worry about a car being behind you. And it's one of the really fun and interesting dynamic parts of a multi-class sports car race. Here's Killian Claes then embroiled in a battle with Cesar Cabral, a driver that we've seen be quite fast out here on track today. Was fighting with the number 41 of Alex Miller earlier on in this fight. Still a few seconds back on him at the moment, but this is turning into a four-way fight for 7th place. I think we've got a variety of strategies across these 4 cars as well, as Miller only on lap 6 of his stint, but all the cars around him already deep into the double digits. So the 41 driver just going to be waiting a little bit and waiting for that pit strategy to cycle out and move him back up through the field. He's made some smart decisions out there on track today, and again, not biased.
Alexander Miller of the Taylor Mills Racing number 41.
You forgot my number for a second there?
Maybe. It's not my team.
It's right
I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about it. It's not my team. I don't have a team in this race. I don't have any bias. I just look at the cars and go, wee. Meanwhile,
that car blue, it goes zoom.
That car blue, it goes zoom. As the 41, the 77 and the 70 are embroiled in a battle for, as you mentioned, about 7th or so. About 8th position, I think. Alexander Miller is currently in. Killian Claes keeping the car straight for the most part, getting a little squirrely on exit, but keeping her contained, as Alex Miller is now bottled up behind a GT3 car. I do believe that is the Sonic Racing Team car of Afonso Sudo.
But it could be anyone.
It could be anyone. It could be almost anyone. Literally could be almost anyone. Taking a peek out onto the back stretch. A nice safe pass done. And that is done and over with. More separation between him and the battle behind, as now the battle for 9th is what this is turning out to be, with Cabral and Killian Claes battling it out. The lead has not changed so far, but we've been seeing on your interval timer here that push and pull through Long Beach that is inevitable to happen here. A lot of push and pull in terms of the distance between these two cars. That kind of is how it ends up happening. You know, you see these times kind of shrink a little bit as they get to the braking zone, get a little bit of a draft down through the straights, and then you get kind of bottled up behind the car. Maybe the car ahead doesn't get as much of a good launch as you would want them to, and that bottles you up a little bit. And then cars stretch out their legs, and on acceleration, it kind of just extends a little bit. So it's kind of like it's almost like watching someone breathe when they're sleeping. Like they can kind of see their chest expand and contract. It's the same thing with these timing screens here, with the 0.8 seconds growing and shrinking from about a second to about half a second between these two cars in the lead.
63 minutes almost gone in this race. It's Mikael Sundström and Andre Rosa at the front of the field battling out for the overall victory. Pedro Paquette down there in third, lamenting about 6.5 seconds off the back of this fight, with Bart Mattia up in fourth now, so a position gain for him, with Kostek Stolovic rounding out the top 5 in LMP2 as it stands. Miguel Almeida for NGC by Rubis Gas, or Sonic Racing Team, as it says on the timing screen, is at the lead of that GT3 fight, with Gerard Sardani-Sace actually jumping on board the XPD Racing McLaren down in P2 right now. Fonzo Suto rounds out the podium, with Jan Kerb still down in fourth place at the moment, as the sister writer engineering car of Adrian Hanovics rounds out the top 5 in GT3. GT3 itself quite spread out amongst the entire field, but the LMP2 grid's still a little bit of intrigue and a little bit of spice to go, as we have those two different pit stop strategies underway. We've got the 2-stop on the go, we have the 1-stop on the go, and I think it is the 1-stop that's going to come out on top today. But it is a very tight fight between two cars on the 1-stop. Mikael Sundström still coming under pressure from Andre Rosa.
Very tight battle between Sundström and Rosa, as it has been for pretty well most of the race. These two drivers, obviously the cream of the crop, rising to the top, as a certain professional wrestler might say. That beautiful yellow and pink gradient set in metallic on the number 899, and the number 42, a nice and simple white and green. I do be a fan of green. So they head into turn 1 once again, and these two drivers, despite the fact that I could say that they've kept it really clean, there is damage on both cars. You can kind of see it, especially on the rear end of the car on the left side. You can see just how much those light carriers have had some damage on them, just rubbing against the walls, but they haven't been involved in major incidents. They haven't been involved in even minor incidents. It's just a little brushes with the wall here and there, a little bit of toe damage maybe, and they're still able to battle it out for first. So a fantastic showing of just how difficult Long Beach can be, even for the best of drivers, as you are currently watching with Mikael Sundström, an I-rating of about 2,900, and Andre Rosa, an I-rating of 5.1K. So there's a wide sweep of I-rating here, and I know most people say I-rating doesn't matter, but it kind of does. Maybe a little bit. It doesn't
in leagues. It doesn't in leagues. It only matters when you're actually getting thrown in lobbies against other drivers. But to give you some context as to just how tricky it has been out here on track at Long Beach today, we started this race with 36 cars in the field as Killian Claes gets a big attack. Was on the receiving end of a big attack from Cesar Cabral, who gets dutifully out of the way for the lead fight. But we have lost, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 cars. 14 cars? 14 cars from this race. And we've only got 22 left out of 36. So a real race of attrition out there, as you're following Mikael Sundström trying to make his way past what I think is the only Balka black car.
Boy. Oh no. Oh god.
Door banging. Andre Rosa slamming into the side of Mikael Sundström to try and force his way past that Porsche GT3. Sundström won't be happy with that, as the door banging looks set to continue. Andre Rosa tucks in for the hairpin, but that was a very aggressive bit of driving for the NGT by Rubus Gas driver.
Oh my lord, I thought for sure something was going to happen there. Mikael Sundstrom was trying to use the GT3 car as a pick to try and force Andre Rosa behind him, to be behind that Porsche to keep them slow. Andre Rosa said, I don't think so, and muscled his way into Mikael Sundstrom to force a gap to open 3 wide on the backstretch with the Porsche not against the wall, because he was thinking, oh, you know what, I know what I'm being used as. I'm being used as a pick. I'm going to sit in the middle so you have an outside to go to. Did not expect, nobody expected Rosa to be fighting back that hard. That is pure, unadulterated aggression from Rosa that could have resulted in absolute catastrophe, as they are now splitting the battle that was happening further down in the grid between Claes and Cabral as well as Miller. And how did I not see
like that?
How did I not see 2 cars plus in the fence? We need to take another look. I need to see another look. That's incredible.
So here it comes again for you then. This was the run just through turn 9. We saw this at the end of that side-by-side contact. Here's going to be a really good viewing of it. Rosa gets a run around the outside of 8. Sundstrom tries to pin him in behind the Balka Black car down on the straight, but Rosa is having absolutely none of it and just turns right again and moves the 899 all the way back over to the right-hand side of the circuit. There's a bit of a gap there that closes relatively quickly. There's the first one, there's the second one, and it's just enough for the NGC by Rubus Gas LMP2 to squeeze its way through as he keeps the fight going for the overall lead of this race. Sundstrom down the inside of the Reiter McLaren into turn 8, gets a little bit checked up on exit as Rosa's going to get a little bit better run out of the corner, but isn't going to be able to get up to the back of Sundstrom yet again, as they do slowly make their way up to the back of another one of the lapped LMP2s. It's going to be Alex Miller this time. Will he get out of the way in the same way that Killian Claes and Cesar Cabral did? Time will tell. That car carrying a little bit of damage on the front right corner as far as I can see. So Miller maybe getting into an incident at some point in the last few laps or so, as the car looked relatively repaired when he came out of pit lane. But Sundstrom, Rosa gap 0.7 of a second, as Rosa starting to drop back a little bit like we've seen on a couple of occasions in this race so far, as Sundstrom seems to find this second wind every now and again to just start to expand that gap, but gets a little bit checked up on the exit of 5. It's something we've seen so many times before, and it just allows Andre Rosa to get back up into his diffuser. Alex Miller is still in the way of this fight. He may pull over coming out of turn 8, as we've seen so many cars do before.
Ooh.
He's going to stay over to the left. I don't suspect he'll put up much of a fight as Sundstrom makes his way through. He's going to stay over there on the racing line on the left-hand side of the circuit, and Rosa's going to have to squeeze past the driver of the number 41 car. It is going to check him up a little bit into this final sector, and I'm sure Rosa won't be happy about this one at all, as we tick towards 19 minutes left to go in this race, and the fight for the lead is not over yet.
I did want to mention that after we saw that onboard, I had thought that Rosa was just being aggressive, like for the purpose of being aggressive, especially in this late stage of a race. But looking on that onboard, it revealed actually it's a Porsche. I believe Max Cuthbert was actually cutting towards the center, almost seemed like he was mirror driving, seeing 2 cars, knew he was going to be used as a pick, but instead of looking forward was looking in the mirror, and as a result was pulling towards the right-hand side of the track, and it forced Rosa basically into Mikael Sundstrom just to try and make room that was already there, that was narrowing the gap because of the Porsche. So bit of an unfortunate situation, but Andre Rosa is saying, no, I'm not slowing down. I'm definitely going through this gap. I don't care if the Porsche is narrowing it. Still a very aggressive move, don't get me wrong, but certainly a move that did not need to be as dangerous as it was because of the Porsche narrowing that gap. Pretty common circumstance for the GT3s. I won't deny that. I'm a GT3 driver. I know how it is. GT3 drivers often making things more dangerous than they have to be. But this battle between Sundstrom and Rosa is still able to go on within half a tenth, or half a second rather. And same story further behind. That battle that we saw was getting cut up just as that was occurring. A battle between Killian Claes and Cesar Cabral, the number 77 and number 70 of the Eagle Speed Academy and Race 2 Esport P217s, respectively. It's a P217, right? Did I remember that correctly?
Indeed, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Do you know why it's a P217?
I do not.
To be fair, you should be able to figure this out.
LMP2 class, 17 cool points.
Close enough. 2017.
Oh.
Yeah. It's why the what's it? The LMP3 is the Ligier JSP 20. I want to say, because it's sorry, JSP 320, because JS is, I think, for the name of a name of someone related to one of the founders, and then the P3 is the class, 20 is the year. So it'll be the same for the LMP2 for Ligier as well. It'll be the JSP 217, which is very similar to the Dallara P217. As I think that was one of the LMP2s diving into the pit lane.
Yes, it was.
Behind the fight that we were watching, it was actually your third place driver of Pedro Daniel Paquette, who comes down pit lane for the final time. He should have still had about 10 laps of fuel left in that car. Not enough to get him to the end of this race, I don't think, but on that two-stop, deciding to come down pit lane relatively early compared to everyone else. A couple more drivers that I expect to come down pit lane relatively soon is that fight we were watching for P9 on track. Yeah, the Eagle Speed Academy car and the Race 2 Esports car, both about five laps or so away from a start for Cabral, and maybe another 10 for the Eagle Speed car. That's going to be relatively close to getting to the end of the race, but should fall a little bit short. Drivers that we know are safe to the end of this one: Mikhail Sundstrom, Andre Rosa, Bart Mattia, Kostek Solovej, Garcia Blasco was on that earlier stop as well, so maybe a pit. No, never mind. He's on that late stop too, as is, I believe, P7 and P8 in this race. So a couple of positions to actually be lost by the likes of Pedro Paquette and even P6. So a lot of these guys are going to move up at least one more spot before the end of this event.
He's been in the pits for twice as long.
Pit stop.
Yeah, I'm really not sure what's going on here. If he's fixing damage or something. This is an abnormally long pit stop. It's got to be.
Yeah,
it's got to be.
He managed to pick up damage at some point in the last lap or so and has come down pit lane to serve a meatball. I don't know if we can get a replay of that for Pedro Paquette, but your winner of round one of this championship looks to be out of race 3.
Yeah, I don't see anything on my event timer. It must have been a situation where he didn't receive. It wasn't the kind of incident where he would be spun around and be stopped. It must have been a situation where he just slammed the wall really hard, knocked the suspension loose or something like that. It had to be something like that if I don't see any incident on the screen. And at Long Beach, that is the most likely occurrence to happen. The most likely scenario. If you see somebody who's in the pits for that long, and you don't see any like crash notification in the event viewer on our little ticker tower that we see here, 9 times out of 10 it's because they just slammed the wall a bit too hard.
So less than 15 minutes to go in this race, and I'll tell you what, it's been an absolute cracker so far. I told you it was going to be dramatic, and dramatic it has been. I can't lie, I'm surprised by the amount of side-by-side racing we've seen over the last hour and 17 minutes, and it does look just about set to continue. We still have a couple more pit stops yet to come in this race, as some of these drivers weren't quite able to make that 45-minute mark to push for that one stop. They, of course, have had a second chance to try and get on that one stop. So we'll see how that shakes out before the end of this one as we take just under 13 minutes to go. You are watching a fight between Carlos Pereira and Alex Dieter for P11 in LMP2. Both cars recovering from incidents earlier on in this race. Dieter 9/10 behind as it stands, just closing in a little bit on the brakes for P6. And I think both of these cars are actually looking relatively undamaged at this stage of the race. So I'd expect a relatively fair fight between them.
I'd have to agree with that one. Each car in this battle looking fairly clean, fairly capable. As we are looking at this battle here between Alex Dieter and Carlos Pereira. The battle, meanwhile, between Killian Claes and Cesar Cabral, still brawling it out on the streets of Long Beach. 0.6 seconds between them. It's the closest battle on track. And for GT3 fans, I know what you're thinking. Where's all the GT3 cars? You haven't talked about the GT3 cars. They've all been like a second and a half or longer away from each other. There's been no battles. It's literally just been pylons at this point, just moving obstacles for the LMP2s. And LMP2 is where the battles have been happening. As we now see Claes and Cabral catching up to Alexander Miller within 3/4 of a second now, leading this battle. It's a battle for 7th, as the battle is now split up between the lapped McLaren. Trying to get through that traffic. Cabral is going to be side by side with the McLaren, entering into the compromised line, but not going to be too big a deal. Heading straight into another corner complex, going to be able to make up some of that time to keep the battle somewhat close. But Alexander Miller keeping the 7th position, at least for now. And Sundstrom and Rosa, this battle that we had been seeing waged throughout the entire race, seems to have gathered a bit of distance. Rosa over a second and a half away from the leader of this race.
Well, Cesar Cabral has been waiting for traffic to get involved in this fight. Killian Claes looks like he's actually got a run on Alex Miller on the run down into turn 9. These cars are going to be side by side into the corner. Miller on the outside with Claes on the inside. He looks like he's going to have the run through turn 10, but goes quite wide, manages to hold it to set up the inside for the hairpin. If Miller loses momentum, it's going to set up Cabral. Cabral with a big kick of oversteer in the middle of the corner gets him all the rotation that he needs to make it out of the hairpin in front of the 41 of Miller. Miller's going to try and slot in for an attack into turn 1, but look at the momentum Cabral has got on the left-hand side of the circuit. They're trying to make it 3 wide into 1, but Cabral on the brakes just manages to get by Claes. Claes slams the car into the barrier. Miller thinks better of getting by, but in the space of a lap, Cesar Cabral from P9 moves up to P7. What a move.
Very smart thinking from Alexander Miller to stay behind and let Killian Claes redress himself and get ready for the fountain section, but there's only 10 minutes left in this race. Time is running out. Alexander Miller is going to try and find some opportunity to get that position back, and he might be kicking himself later on, he might not. Cooler heads prevail often, but sometimes there's those situations where it's like, what if I would have been that crazy LMP2 driver? What if I would have been that kind of guy? Meanwhile, Killian Claes narrowing the gap up to Cesar Cabral. Getting these names all mixed up and everything. Sorry, I'm an English speaker. I'm terrible at this. As Cabral now leading the charge in 7th place, fitting in behind the big pocket of air that Miguel Almeida is punching through with the Rubus Gas McLaren. Killian Claes about to follow suit, might have his line compromised, heading into the... Nope, thinks better of it, backs out of it, so that now opens the door for Alexander Miller to try and make up another position and get back into 8th.
I don't think Miller's going to have a run through this first sector. He is nursing a little bit of damage. You can see the front end of that number 41 TMR car not quite looking straight, which is pretty normal. He's just trying to generate some sort of run on the car in front of him to try and get that position back, but can't get the car out of the corner. And I don't think it's going to be able to get alongside Almeida into turn 6. Will get separated from Killian Clays to Eagle Speed Academy, as Clays can breathe a sigh of relief as he doesn't have to worry about cars behind and keeps his eyes forward. And Amity, you were just saying how there has been absolutely no battles in GT3, but here's one that has been developed that I've been keeping an eye on for the last 10 laps or so. Jan Kurbs has really turned the wick up in the dying minutes of this race, and it's within half a second of that last step of the podium. Sonic Racing Team's Afonso Suto is all that stands between Kurbs and a virtual bronze medal. That R8 V10 is looking punchy right now as it screams down the start-finish straight towards turn 1. But Mattia is going to want to bite out of these two to try and get through before that tricky first sector and make sure he gets a clean run to focus on the cars in front of him. Kurbs is going to jink to the left a little bit to say, no, thank you. You're not going by. Mattia reads that and goes, you know what? That is absolutely fine by me. I'm just going to hold position, as Kurbs is desperate to get a decent run through the rest of this lap and try and set up a move on Suto. But Suto is doing all he needs to do right now to keep that McLaren 720S GT3 just in front of the Audi R8 behind.
The Audi R8 V10 screaming as Bart Mattea finally makes a pass on Jan Kurbs, separating this battle now. And you're correct, just as I was saying, there's nothing really happening throughout the entire race in GT3. Jan Kurbs actually turns the wick up, as you mentioned. Suto just ahead. This is a battle for third place. And also, in addition to that, the battle for first place in LMP2 is also heated up within a second. So there's now two battles on track, both in different classes, but Jan Kurbs might actually get this pass done. He looks like he's a little bit faster than Suto, at least in the third sector. You could see just how much that time had dropped in the third sector. We could see something happen in the next 5 minutes, or at least if it's going to, it better happen now, because time, once again, is running out on this race.
Just over 5 minutes to go here at Long Beach in round 3 of the Platinum Pilot Series. Jan Kurbs versus Afonso Suto for P3 in GT3. That Audi R8 V10 is infamous for having the shortest wheelbase out of all of the GT3s, and it's being used to its advantage by Kurbs at the moment, who's done a great job to get up to the back of and stay behind Afonso Suto. Difficult to overtake here at Long Beach, but Kurbs knows that if he keeps applying that pressure, he could force an error from Suto and just drive off into the distance as that pressure cooker increases and increases, as Kurbs is going to blink into a separate plane of existence. I'm hoping that isn't completely gone for Jan, who was looking in a good spot to try and snatch a podium in the dying minutes of this race. I'm waiting to see.
Oh, thank God.
A packet loss. There he is. Here is the German on board that German car. Anyone who's rooting for Kurbs can take a sigh of relief. You were talking about that battle at the front of the field as well. I mean, it has spread back out to 0.9 of a second. Mikel Estevez getting involved in that one a little bit and separating the 42 from the 899 as they move towards the final few laps of this race. This is your closest battle on track. It's Reiter Engineering versus Sonic Racing Team. Afonso Suto versus Jan Kurbs. Kurbs is a winner in the Platinum Pilot Series. He won at the Hockenheimring last season after making the switch to the Audi R8 V10, and it's a spin. It's a big spin for Afonso Suto on the curbs through turn 5, and he will surrender the last step on the GT3 class podium to Jan Kurbs. I said the pressure cooker was mounting. I said he was applying it the entire time, and Afonso Suto for Sonic Racing Team finally cracks Jan Kurbs for Reiter Engineering, steps up into P3, and as long as he can keep it clean, will finish third here today.
I'm taking a look here on the roof cam of the McLaren. Coming over the curbs, just gets a little bit nervous and not able to save it in time, not able to correct, and Jan Kurbs just says, "Thank you, as you please," and takes that position away from Afonso Suto. A brilliant battle of the minds from these two drivers, but Jan Kurbs coming out on top with the Audi R8.
You know, when iRacing eventually gives us the reflective sound that it's been promising us, my God, that car is going to sound absolutely incredible around the streets of Long Beach.
I might actually drive this car again. When I first started out on iRacing in GT3, I was driving the Audi.
Yeah, me too.
And once we get the reflective audio back, or not back, but once we get reflective audio in here, and those cars are going to sound gorgeous, I'm going to want to hear them all day and all night. And absolutely, I concur. I'm going to be driving this car a lot if that, whenever that audio system gets implemented.
But have you considered that we're probably going to get the Aston Martin Valkyrie as well?
Ooh.
I know.
In what class?
The Valkyrie in GTP.
GTP. I don't drive prototypes. I'm not good enough.
You should. Do you know how you get good at something? You practice.
Yeah, but I don't wanna.
So we're approaching 2 minutes to go in this race as Mikael Sundstrom is about to tick off the 69th lap of this event, still trying to thread his way through some of that GT3 traffic that's just getting itself involved in this lead fight. It's going to compromise Andre Rosa's run through turn 8 as Sundstrom is going to get a great run down to turn 9. Big flash of the headlights from Diogo Teodoro, who isn't happy with the way Andre Rosa conducted that overtake, but Rosa is not looking in his mirror at that headlight flash. His eyes are firmly forward at the pink rear end of the LMP2 in front of him. It should be 2 laps to go as they come across the start finish line just about, and no, that will make it white flag this time by Barney, waving that white flag as they come around down into turn 1 for the final time. Mikael Sundstrom, an hour and a half ago, took pole position for this 90-minute race here at Long Beach. In the second half of the race, he has come under all sorts of pressure by Andre Rosa on board that NGC Rubis Gas LMP2. All that stood between Sundstrom and victory now is the final 6 corners of this track and 1 more GT3. The gap between these 2 cars currently stands at 0.7 of a second. It is going to take a mighty dive from Andre Rosa in P2 to try and take away this victory from Sundstrom. Sundstrom and nearly on pace, who were in a fantastic spot in Monza to try and get a late race victory, couldn't quite pull it together. In one more attempt to get by, it is a big flash of the headlights from Andre Rosa, but that won't unsettle Sundstrom at all. He took that 1 stop. He took that pole. He has been on the front foot the entire race so far. And for the first time in PPS, Mikael Sundstrom wins at Long Beach.
A beautiful race from Mikael Sundstrom, start to finish. Fantastic job from the 899. Meanwhile, Miguel Almeida now finishing up the lap. You can see Gerard Sardeni just behind, actually narrowed that gap just a little bit, but still 1.1 seconds behind. Little too much to be able to overcome, at least in this last section, unless Miguel Almeida has a massive mistake. And unfortunately on that a little screen on the bottom right, that lower third, the team is incorrect for now, but we'll have it fixed for next week. Miguel Almeida once again returning to a victorious form from last season, from earlier this season, and once again taking yet another win in the Pilot Series for a GT3 class.
Gerard Saves will finish in 2nd place in GT3, and Jan Kurbs will be the next to come across the start-finish line to round out your GT3 podium. Afonso Souto, with that late race spin, lost out on what would have been an all-McLaren top 3, but there is a random German car that just inserted its way in there to really ruin the day for the British manufacturer. But what a fantastic race we saw out of Long Beach. A brand new winner of Mikael Sundstrom. So let's have a look then, Amity, and see exactly how the race ended out.
So taking a look at the results on screen shortly, we'll run through the order of events. Overall finishing position is going to be displayed here on the left side of your screen, nearly on pace by Race Bowden. That is the Mikael Sundstrom, number 899, taking the top spot overall and an LMP2 class. Meanwhile, the NGC by Rubis Gas car of Andre Rosa taking second position. Bart Mattia going to be taking third in the number 5 car for Correction Lost Racing. Kostek Solovage in the Fury Simsport 222 taking in fourth. Number 5th is going to be occupied by the XPD Endurance Solo. We saw them 1 and 2 in the last race 2 weeks ago, but falling down into 5th position off the podium. The number 85 car of Adrian Hanabitz. Or, sorry, excuse me, that is Alberto Blasco. Bram Lenton, we saw him having a bit of a chaotic situation today. Multiple incidents, multiple situations he got himself into, but recovering to 6th. A fantastic drive from him, not losing a position from his grid. Meanwhile, Cesar Cabral and Killian Clay is going to be finishing 7th and 8th, having a fantastic battle with each other. Alexander Miller having also a fantastic battle for 7th, but unfortunately getting a little tied up and coming out 9th. Stefan Le Guin in the Squadra Veloce by Eagle RS, number 147, turning out 10th. Alex Deiter going to be finishing out in 11th. And finishing in 12th overall LMP2s is the S&M Sempra Nameka of Carlos Pereira. Meanwhile, we're getting into the GT3 cars.
Yeah, making up 1 position from his starting spot, Miguel Almeida returns to the front of the field and takes the win here at Long Beach. XPD Racing's Gerard Sadani saves will bring it home in P2. Jan Kurbs returns to the podium after last appearing on Hockenheim last season with a P3 after snatching it from Afonso Suto in those closing minutes of the race. The sister writer engineering car of Adrian Hadovix brings it home in P5. Diogo Teodoro finishes in P6 for Sonic Racing Team. Miguel Estevez will finish in 7th with Artur Loureiro for NGC by Rubis Gas, bringing it home in P8. Max Cuthbert, after lamenting off the back of the field down in P12 in GT3 earlier on in this race, will finish in 9th. And your did not finishes are as follows. Pedro Paquette, Fran Labrada, Daniel Fascia, Tiffany Toledano, Justin DeLucia, Martin Greer, Matthew J. Luke, Pedro Vigario, Leandro Mendez, Oliver Vigaju, Dominic Isenberg, Miguel Alonso, Scott DeMarco, Mark Hagler, and Aaron Broderick all failed to finish. So it was a race of attrition, but after 90 minutes, we are going to get the chance to talk to the driver who came out on top. It is a first-time victory in Platinum Pilot Series competition. Miguel Sundstrom, tell me about that one.
Ooh, that was a sweaty one. But yeah, thank you. I didn't really expect much going into this. Super surprised I managed to put it on pole, and then it was just kind of survival for most of the race, to be honest.
Yeah, and it certainly looked like it out there as well. The GT3s inserting themselves into those battles left, right, and centre. I think the most intriguing thing coming into this race is the fact that we're just over 24 hours removed from another bit of an overhaul on the tyres in LMP2. So how did you handle that? Because you can't have done any practice before yesterday.
No, it was just a lot of panic practice, clicking, trying to figure out what the car wants to do now. But I think we found something. I have a big shout out to Seb. He's we worked a lot of setups, and that helped a lot. We managed to find something that obviously worked well enough, right?
Well, it certainly looked like it. Yeah, bringing it home in P1 from pole position as well. It was quite the dominant victory. We saw a couple of strategies unfolding out there on track as well. You and a few guys in the top 10 took it all the way to the 50-minute mark, but a few of the other drivers couldn't quite, or chose not to go that long. Was it really going to be a case of burn the tank the entire way, or was there maybe an element of let's stop a little bit early and see if we can get the tyres up to temperature a little bit quicker and outpace everyone else on the fresher rubber?
I think if you started in the top 5, I think there was no reason not to. I think you just had to go as long as possible to exploit the track position you have. It's so difficult to overtake her. I mean, you saw that Rosa was way faster than me in clean air, but it was just couldn't overtake. I managed to be just fast enough in the right places. So yeah, it was just, I had no thought about any other strategy than just going as long as possible.
Well, as I say, it certainly seemed to work, but we are going to make our way to the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps next time out, which is a track that I'm sure you are more than familiar with. How do you get yourself set up for the next race? It is a very different track once again, and you still don't quite have a full understanding of these tyres.
No, for sure. It'll be interesting. We've done the race there. I guess that was also before the rework of the LMP2, but I have a rough idea what the car wants. We've done a bunch of setup work. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, but it's going to be... we've done Monza, we did Le Mans, so there's a bunch of low downforce tracks at least previously, so we have some experience. It's going to be interesting, for sure.
Well, I certainly wish you the best of luck for the next race, but if you do have any shout-outs to make, anyone you want to say hello to, now's your chance.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the organizers of this series. It's good fun. Thank you to Simrace Technique, Hagström Systems, and Race Boden, of course.
Well, then congratulations.
In the comms box, of course.
It's a pleasure to bring all the action you put on the show. We just talk about it. But congratulations once again on your victory. Good luck next time out. And hopefully for you, we'll see you in the broadcast booth again at the end of another 90-minute race.
I can only hope, hey?
So that was Mikael Sundström for Nearly On Pace, taking the victory in LMP2 and overall here at Long Beach. And next up, we're going to have your GT3 class winner returning to the broadcast booth. Amity Pulsatrix, why don't you have a chat with Miguel Almeida?
Hello.
So,
good night.
Yeah, good night. It would be about good afternoon for me here, about 3:43 p.m. in the afternoon. But you, in the afternoon of the California streets of Long Beach, once again pulling yet another win in the Platinum Pilot Series. Talk me through it. What was your mindset going into this race? You know, it's a street circuit. I think I recall 2 weeks ago you said that you weren't super excited about this race. It's a very difficult track. So what did you do the past 2 weeks to get yourself prepared?
Try not to crash every lap. That was my mindset. But yes, as I said in the first interview I had here, I didn't have the track at all, so I was kind of finding out what the lines were. So there were some intense 2 weeks of training, and Bill Laurent was really fast in the first stint. It was kind of a shame that with the driver swap they lost quite a bit of time, but I can't lie, it was good for me, so kind of happy with that as well. But yeah, surprisingly clean race from everyone involved, taking into account the last 2 races, and yeah, it went better than expected, certainly.
So, as you mentioned, that switch of teams over to the Rubis Gas team. Tell me about that procedure. Like, when you switched teams, was it kind of a personal decision on your part, or had they reached out to you? What was the situation there?
Honestly, it was a mistake. Since we had the pack race on Saturday, I kind of muscle memory registered with the wrong team.
I knew it.
It was a mistake. Yeah. So I kind of communicated that with the organization team and with the teammate that was supposed to go into this car to please don't enter the car or else I won't be able to race. Don't do it. But yeah, I'm racing with them in pack, not PPS. But yeah, it was my mistake here.
I
racing
see.
with a different livery for sure.
All right. So not necessarily a team switch, not a mistake. I was worried that we had dated entry data, but good to know it's not my mistake at least. So I'm absolved of any wrongdoing at the very least.
Yeah.
But regardless, a fantastic win for you and the Sonic Racing team here today. Despite using a bit of an incorrect livery, it still looks nice though on the McLaren. I'm gonna be honest. But regardless, heading into 2 weeks' time, we're going to be going to Spa. Give me your thoughts on that. How do you feel about Spa de Francorchamps? Are you feeling confident, feeling not so confident? What's the spiel with that?
Yeah, I'm not gonna try to jinx it, but it's one of my favorite tracks, so I won't be very happy if I don't win it. So let's see. Last year I had a good time there, so let's see if I can do it again this time around. But I'm not gonna say anything else, or else I jinx it. So.
All right, totally accept that. Don't want to jinx too much because you're already having a very successful season this year. Now, any final thoughts that you have? Any shout outs you want to give? Some thanks to your teammates, your crew. The floor is yours.
Yeah, in this case, thanks to the Rubis guys in the C team for kind of last minute team change, and the organization for understanding this mishap. And thanks and congratulations to the Sonic Racing team for a strong race. We had quite a good positions for everyone here. And yeah, hope to see you in 2 weeks' time in Spa.
All right, thank you very much, Miguel Almeida, our GT3 winner once again here in Platinum Pilot Series. Congratulations on your class win, and that was 2 weeks of preparation for this race that you had on a track you're not familiar with, and you once again proved dominance. Congratulations on your win, and have a good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right.
Wow, what a race from Long Beach, Amity. I don't think realistically that's a lot of what we expected coming into it. We know that this race can always throw up as some sort of surprise, shock, bit of drama, and we definitely saw that today. But I think the one thing that really surprised me was the absolute quality of the rating that we saw. At one point we had 4 cars scrapping over P8 in LMP2. We had the likes of Paquette going around the outside of the hairpin. We had the absolute drama of Lenton's self-spin down at the hairpin as well. Had the side-by-side moment between him and Cabral into turn 1. And don't forget, I think it was Cabral that went up 2 places in 1 lap as well. And not to mention the lead fight we had in that second half of the race, where Nearly on Pace and NGC were nose to tail for the final 35 minutes of the race.
Yeah, it was fantastic throughout. LMP2, very competitive class. We saw lots of battling happen on track, especially because of the GT3s exacerbating those particular situations. Meanwhile, GT3 fairly distant from each other, fairly spread out throughout the entirety of Long Beach, aside from just about the last half of the last eighth of the race, with a battle between Young Curbs and Afonso Sudo. Curbs able to get the better of Afonso Sudo, as Sudo actually cracked under the pressure a little bit. And finally, we see a break in the mold, a non-McLaren driver getting onto the podium. Very exciting racing all around, at least in LMP2, and finished off strong for the GT3s with an actual pass being made. A lot of DNFs as well. Lots of people not being able to handle the streets, of Long Beach. We saw a couple twin turn vehicles retiring. Sonic Racing team, one of their cars also retiring. 2 Fury Sim Sport cars retired. An XBD Racing Endurance car. We saw them dominate last event. This event, not so much. 2 of their cars ending up DNFing, and their highest finishing vehicle actually being Gerard Sardini in GT3, being able to finish second, but in LMP2 XBD Endurance solo of Alberto Blasco finishing 5th. So lots of very interesting stories being made here at Long Beach, as there always is. A big shakeup, not only in the standings, but also in, who we saw finishing on top in each class.
Yeah, a brilliant race then from Long Beach. And if you are craving more racing action, we will be back at Long Beach on Saturday for VRR's Marathon GT World Tour. It is a field of V8 supercars around the Long Beach street circuit. A week later, we will be there with the same series at Laguna Seca for round 4 of that championship as we tackle another 3 sprint races. A few days after that, it's round 4 of the Platinum Pilot Series from the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, with more VRR Marathon GT World Tour from Mount Panorama. Stay tuned to ABN. There is still plenty of racing action to come over the next few weeks. We look forward to you joining us for it once again. But for now, we will see you in Spa. Good night.